The air in Capitol Hill was already thick with tension. Reporters shuffled nervously. Lawmakers whispered behind folders. It was supposed to be a regular hearing on national security reforms. But Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez had something else in mind. She stood up, fists clenched. "Enough is enough," she said into the mic. "We are sitting in this chamber, pretending that Donald J. Trump hasn't caused irreversible harm to this country. But I will say it today, out loud for the record." The room hushed. "I believe Donald Trump is a domestic terrorist." Gasps exploded. Journalists dropped their pens. One senator stood to walk out, but froze. C-SPAN's cameras zoomed in. Twitter hashtags ignited. On TikTok, teens mimicked her fiery expression. It went viral in minutes. Some clapped. Others looked horrified. AOC didn't flinch. January 6th wasn't a fluke. It was a threat to democracy, and he orchestrated it. Then suddenly, the lights dimmed. A screen flickered on behind her. And there he was, Donald Trump, beamed in via satellite, his face calm, almost smug. "What you just said," he began, "might be the biggest mistake of your career." The chamber froze. AOC turned slowly, stunned to see Trump live on the screen. "Mr. Chairman," she barked, "why is this man being broadcast in a federal hearing?" The chair responded coldly. "He submitted a last-minute request. You made this about him. He gets to respond." AOC looked like she had just been slapped. Trump adjusted his tie. "I didn't come here to defend myself. I came to expose you." The crowd gasped again. He tapped a stack of documents beside him. "I brought declassified memos and FBI testimony. Everything they won't show you on CNN." AOC's face twitched, her lips pressed tight. He continued, "You called me a terrorist? Then explain why your team pushed for reduced security on January 6th, despite 17 warnings." She stood frozen. A large file flashed on screen. DC Capital Risk Assessment. Ignored briefing. Even the Democrats shifted in their seats. Trump leaned in. "You want to play dirty, Congresswoman? Let's play dirty." For the first time, AOC looked shaken. Outside, people gathered in crowds around TVs. Taxi radios screamed with updates. Newsrooms scrambled to verify. But no one was prepared for what Trump would say next. 5 words that would make history. Trump paused. He looked straight into the camera, and with eerie calm, delivered the words, "You don't love this country." The room cracked open. Senators looked at AOC. The audience gasped. One aide dropped a coffee cup. Trump didn't raise his voice. He didn't shout. But the silence that followed was violent. "I did what I did," he said, "because I thought I was protecting something. You just want to tear it down." AOC's eyes welled up, not from sadness but pure fire. "How dare you? You dare to call me a terrorist?" he interrupted. "But I buried friends on 9/11. I visited troops in Iraq." "Where were you?" His voice broke, a rare tremor. "I may be wrong. I may be reckless. But don't you ever question my love for this flag." The camera caught AOC's lips trembling. It was raw, real. A young intern outside the room whispered, "Why do I feel like crying?" Because the story wasn't black and white anymore. Trump's words stung, not because they were savage, but because they struck a nerve. And something told everyone watching. This was only the beginning. AOC didn't blink, but her voice cracked. "You think this is a game?" she said softly, trembling. "People died. On that day, people were crushed against doors, begging for help." She turned to the room. "Officer Brian Sicknick was buried with silence while you played golf." Trump didn't smile this time. "I watched families cry in front of coffins," AOC continued. "And you, on live TV, told them to move on." Trump leaned back. "You want to talk about death?" His voice darkened. "Then talk about the suicides, the veterans, The businesses lost under your lockdowns. You destroyed homes while you posted dance videos. AOC's eyes flickered. The room wasn't sure how to react. One Republican actually nodded. A Democrat lowered their eyes. "You're not mad about January 6th, Trump said coldly. You're mad because your version of the truth lost." Some viewers cried. Others clapped. TikTok and X lit up. AOC didn't sit. She walked forward, toward the screen, and whispered, "Tell that to Brian's mother." For the first time, Trump paused. The truth didn't feel like a headline anymore. It felt like grief. A low buzz filled the room. A trembling elderly woman stood from the gallery, her eyes red. Her fingers clutched a small folded flag. "My son," she said. Everyone turned. Cameras zoomed in. It was Gladys Sicknick, mother of fallen officer Brian Sicknick. Security tried to stop her, but the chair lifted his hand. "Let her speak." She stepped into the spotlight like a ghost from America's forgotten pain. "You both think this is about power," she said. "But I buried my son with no answers. I watch news people use him for points. I watch politicians forget his name." She looked straight into the lens. "I don't care who wins this argument. I just want someone to tell the truth." AOC wiped a tear from her cheek. Trump blinked, said nothing. Gladys pulled out a letter. This was Brian's. He wrote it after the riot, but he never sent it. A staffer stepped forward and handed it to the chair. The chair paused, then read aloud, "If I don't make it, just know. I tried. I believed in America, but I'm tired of protecting liars." The entire chamber fell silent. Even Trump's screen went dark. The letter America wasn't meant to see. The letter echoed across the walls of Capitol Hill. Reporters sobbed silently. One conservative senator whispered, "Turn the cameras off." But no one dared. Trump's screen was still black. No feed, no sound. AOC sat down slowly, eyes empty. She wasn't gloating. She looked broken. The chair folded the letter carefully, his hands shaking. "This isn't about red or blue," he said. "This is about what we've become." Online, the letter exploded across Instagram and YouTube shorts. The words, "I tried, but I'm tired of protecting liars," trended in 42 countries. One news anchor burst into tears live on MSNBC. TikTok teens began sharing stories of parents who served in DC that day. People remembered, people wept. Then something shocking happened. Trump's video feed flickered back, but his expression had changed. No more smirk, no more attack. He looked human, old, quiet. "I didn't know his mother was here," he said, voice low. "I didn't know he wrote that." And then, breaking character for the first time ever, Donald Trump whispered, "I'm sorry." Not a tweet, not a headline, just a whisper that no one expected, and no one knew how to respond to. After Trump's unexpected "I'm sorry," the room felt like a church after a funeral. Quiet, fragile, broken. But the story was far from over. AOC sat still, her hands clasped. Then, for the first time, her voice softened. Not angry, not political. "I've never told this before," she said quietly, "not even to my mother." Everyone looked up. "I was hiding in a closet on January 6th, she continued. Alone. I could hear them shouting outside. One voice said, "Find her." Gasps filled the gallery. She breathed hard, remembering. "I texted my brother. I thought I'd die. And the only thing I could think about was my dad." Silence. No one dared to interrupt. "My father died when I was 18. He was proud of this country. Immigrant. Hard-working. But if he saw what I saw that day," her voice cracked. A small tear rolled down her cheek. "He would have called it terrorism too." The room didn't applaud. It just listened. Because in that moment, this wasn't about politics. It was a daughter remembering her father, and millions watching from home were suddenly remembering theirs too. The screen stayed frozen on Trump's face, but he wasn't blinking. A long pause. Then finally, he spoke. "You're not the only one who lost someone that day." AOC lifted her head, surprised. Trump took a deep breath. "My longtime driver, Tony, was outside the Capitol with his wife. She was a food vendor. She didn't come home." Everyone froze. Trump continued, his voice slower. "No one talks about her. No headlines. No press. But she was trying to earn $50 to feed her daughter, caught in the wrong place at the worst time." The camera slowly zoomed in. "I sent flowers, quietly, because if I'd said her name back then, they'd twist it into politics." AOC's eyes softened. "I'm not defending what happened," Trump said. "But this isn't just about me or you. It's about the people we forget when we shout." Even the chair leaned back in his seat, moved, and for the first time in the hearing, the right and the left didn't feel so far apart. On Twitter, someone wrote, "Why am I crying for both of them?" Because this wasn't a debate anymore. It was turning into something rare. Honesty. Just as emotions began to settle, AOC did something unexpected. She reached down and pulled out a manila folder. "I didn't plan to show this," she said, "but if we're talking about truth, then all of it needs to be seen." The chair hesitated. "Ms. Ocasio-Cortez, are you sure?" "Yes," she said firmly, "because if we keep hiding pain behind politics, no one heals." She handed the folder to the clerk. Cameras zoomed in. Inside were photographs, never-before-seen images from a Capitol police officer's body cam. The room turned white with silence, images of children huddled under chairs, of staffers praying behind vending machines, of blood on marble floors. The final image? A torn U.S. flag crumpled beside a pair of broken glasses, with a child's drawing inside. It said, "My mom works here. Please don't hurt her." Tears streamed down multiple faces. Reporters, senators, viewers. Trump looked down. "I didn't know it was that bad," he whispered. AOC nodded. "None of us did, because no one ever showed it." And just like that, the world finally saw what really happened that day, not through headlines, but through a little girl's drawing. Just when the chamber started to quiet down, the back door creaked open. A guard leaned in and whispered to the chair, who looked confused, then surprised, then scared. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, clearing his throat, "there is a request for testimony from an unlisted witness." AOC raised her eyebrows. Trump's video flickered again. From the hallway, an older black man in a faded blue uniform walked in, his badge barely visible. His hands shook. He wasn't a politician. He wasn't famous. He was a Capitol janitor. "I was there that day," he said softly. "I cleaned the blood off the floor." No one moved. "I've worked in this building 22 years. I've watched y'all argue, yell, pretend to care. But that day, it was the first time I saw grown men crying under tables." He held up a stained rag in a Ziploc bag. "I kept this," he said, voice breaking. "Not to prove anything, but because I didn't want to forget." Cameras zoomed in. TikTok exploded. Thousands typed, "We're crying. We've never seen this side." He looked straight at Trump and whispered, "You broke more than windows that day." As the janitor stepped back, another envelope was handed to the chair. "This wasn't planned," the chair said. "It's an anonymous letter. Arrived this morning. Postmarked from Virginia. No return address." He unfolded it. The seal was presidential. AOC leaned in. The chair read slowly, carefully. "I was inside the Oval when it all began. I watched the screens, the maps, the feeds. and I said nothing. I wanted to speak, but my career mattered more than the truth. I watched the president look at the chaos, and I heard him whisper, "Good, let it burn." Gasps rang out. The letter continued. I resigned 3 days later. I have carried the guilt ever since. Then scrawled at the bottom a single line, "I will testify, if you ask." The chair looked pale. It's signed, former Chief of Staff M.W. Even Trump seemed frozen. AOC clutched the edge of her desk. Social media had never moved faster. YouTube live streams crashed under the weight of the moment, because suddenly, this wasn't just about blame. It was about betrayal from the inside. And America was finally seeing the cracks in the wall. Everyone waited for Trump to speak, but he didn't. He stared at the screen, pale and rigid. His usual confidence? Gone. The chair leaned forward. "Mr. Trump, do you deny the words in that letter?" Silence. "Did you say, 'let it burn' on January 6th? Trump finally lifted his eyes, and what he said next sent a chill through every soul in the room. "I don't remember." That was it. No denial, no outrage, just a man suddenly haunted by his own memory. The janitor sat in the back, tears rolling silently. AOC stood. "If he won't remember, we will. The mothers will. The workers will. The people hiding in closets will." Her voice shook. "We remember everything." She opened her bag and pulled out a broken ID badge. "I found this on the floor on January 6th. It belonged to a young intern. She was 19. She hasn't spoken since." The room wept. Even Trump looked down, because sometimes silence is louder than denial. And at that moment, every viewer watching across the world felt it in their chest. As the chamber stood in shocked silence, a young Capitol staffer, trembling, raised her hand. I have something," she whispered. The chair called her forward. Her name was Talia, barely 22, still shaking from what she'd just witnessed. "I found this on an old backup drive," she said. "No one ever showed it on TV. It was dismissed as too blurry. But I saved it, because of the sound." She plugged a flash drive into the monitor. The screen turned black, then flickered. Security cam footage from January 6th appeared. Dust, screams, chaos. And then, a voice. It wasn't yelling. It wasn't rage. It was a little girl crying. Off camera, you could hear her whisper, "I want my mom. Please don't hurt my mom." Gasps. AOC turned away, trying not to cry. Even Trump's eyes moistened. That voice, that cry. It wasn't political. It was human. Talia's hands shook. That girl was in the hallway. Her mom was a janitor. She survived, but she doesn't speak anymore. And suddenly, this wasn't just about blame or defense. It was about a child's voice that no one heard. Until now. For the first time in the hearing, Donald Trump looked unsure of who he was. He stared at the screen playing the video of the crying girl. His jaw clenched, then loosened. "This was never supposed to happen," he said softly. AOC wiped her eyes. "But it did." Trump leaned forward, eyes distant. "I built a movement. I gave people a voice. But maybe I didn't watch closely enough at what that voice became." The room held its breath. "I wanted to shake the system," he said, "not break children." He paused, and then he did something no one expected. He asked the chair for permission to address the girl. The chair nodded slowly. Trump looked straight into the camera, his voice trembling for the first time. "If you're watching this, I'm sorry. I don't know your name. I don't know your story. But I swear to God I never wanted you to be afraid." He closed his eyes. "You didn't deserve that. None of you did." People across the country were crying, and for the first time in years, Trump cried too. It wasn't a headline, it was a reckoning. The chamber was stunned. Trump remained silent on the screen, his eyes glassy. No tweets, no defenses, just stillness. And then, AOC did something no one could believe. She stood up and slowly walked toward the giant monitor. One step, then another. Even Trump looked surprised. She stood directly in front of him, only the screen between them. "You've said a lot today," she said, voice steady. "But this isn't about speeches anymore. It's about healing." The room tensed. Was she going to forgive him or destroy him? She reached into her jacket and pulled out a letter. "This was written by the little girl's mother. She asked me to read it, but I won't." She looked at Trump. "I'll send it to you, not because you earned it, but because she deserves to be heard." Trump swallowed hard. AOC stepped back, and just before returning to her seat, she whispered, "This isn't the end. It's the beginning of what comes next." All across the country, people sat still, because they didn't know what was about to happen. But they knew it was bigger than politics, and it was far from over. The unexpected gift. Just as the session seemed to wind down, the chair cleared his throat. "There's one final submission." He held up a small box, wrapped in faded red cloth. It was sent anonymously to the committee. No return address, no fingerprints, just one note inside. He opened it gently. Inside was a single pair of children's shoes, dusty, pink, size 3. And the note, "She ran out of them when the crowd surged. I found them by the stairs. I didn't know who to give them to. Until today." AOC covered her mouth. Trump looked like he'd stopped breathing. The chair passed the shoes to AOC. She held them like they were glass. "I know whose they are," she whispered. "I met her mother. These belong to the little girl who cried for her mom." The room fell into silence again. Not political silence, human silence. Because in a room filled with power, policy, and pride, 2 tiny shoes spoke louder than any speech ever could. On TikTok, thousands wrote, "I'm sobbing. I'll never forget this." Neither would the world. Trump does the unthinkable. Trump stared at the floor, his face pale, eyes red. For once, no words. Then slowly he lifted his hand. "I'd like to meet the mother," he said quietly, "if she'll let me." Everyone froze. The chair raised an eyebrow. "Are you serious?" Trump nodded. "Not as a politician, as a father, as a man." A hush swept through the room. AOC looked at him, cautious, surprised, but not cold. She leaned to the chair and whispered. He nodded slowly. A few minutes later, the mother walked in. She held her daughter's hand. The little girl wore new shoes, but held an empty pair under her arm. Trump stood, and then slowly, he knelt. "I don't expect forgiveness," he said, "but I want you to know, your pain matters, and I'm sorry I didn't protect you." The woman stared at him. Her lip trembled, then she nodded. One tear slid down her cheek. And the little girl? She stepped forward and gave him the old shoes. Not as a gift, as a reminder. And Donald Trump cried, openly, for all the world to see. The hearing adjourned quietly. No celebration, no smug headlines. But something had shifted. People across America weren't fighting in the comments section. They were crying in them. AOC stepped to the microphone one last time. "We didn't come here today to win. We came to tell the truth. And truth," she paused, "hurts, but it also heals." Trump didn't argue. He simply said, "Let's all try to be better than yesterday." A few clapped. Most just sat, staring at their screens, wiping their tears. As AOC walked out, she passed the little girl. The child looked up, then whispered something only she could hear. AOC froze. She turned to Trump. She said, "Thank you." And the world changed. Not because of power, but because of pain shared. The final broadcast faded to black, but hearts stayed open. If this story moved you, if it made you cry, if it reminded you that we are still human, even when we disagree, please like this video, subscribe, and most importantly, drop a comment below with just one word: heard. Let the world know you felt something today. Let the world know you still care. Because sometimes, the truth doesn't need to be loud, it just needs to be heard.